Dedicated. Okay. King of Kings. Woo. Dedicated. Stand on the Bible is predicated. Been tall, spirit elevated. Align with the word that activated. Dedicated. Stand on the Bible is predicated. Been tall, spirit elevated. Align with the word that activated. Dedicated. Stand on the Bible is predicated. Been tall, spirit elevated. Align with the word that activated. Dedicated. Woo. Dedicated. 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 King of Kings, my Elohim is the Most High, yeah. King of Kings is my Elohim is the Most High, yeah.
All right, so for this portion, we're just going to be talking about the feast days. All right, I want to show you how I get it, how I made the mistake. This is all coming from Ak. He sent me a text earlier today, and he said, Ak, he was like, I looked up last night and I saw a sliver of light, right? So he was like, based off of those calculations last night, Passover can't be on April 6th, which is the date that we have it, right? April 6th at evening. It's the date that we have it. And so I told him I would take a look because he's absolutely right. For those who don't know, the first day of the month, the first day of a new month is going to be during the new moon, right? That's what we base it off of. That's what we always base it off of, right? It's based off of the new moon. Okay. So once you see the new moon, you should be able to count 14 days, right? It's going to be the night of the new moon. So it's going to be at evening, whatever that night is, where the new moon is coming in. You're going to count from there, and then you're going to count 14 days, and that's where you get Passover. And then on the 15th day, it's Unleavened. All right. So when I looked at it, I went back, I did the calculations again. I think I understand where I made the mistake, but I just want to show y'all. I want to be fully transparent and let y'all know exactly what's going on because it is my mess up. It's on me. I made a mistake. I sent out the wrong dates. And so not only is the date for Pesach going to change, but the date for Pentecost is also going to be different. And again, that was my mess up. All right. We're going to fact check the other dates as well. I'm sure as far as what I looked at, every other date is good based on what we sent out. But when we do these feast days, they are for the Most High, right? It's not for us to get so rooted in the date that we become, that we can become, we can forget why we're actually keeping it, right? Really, what should be in our hearts is just to keep the feast and memorialize the feast. But I say all that just to say that you do want to try to get as close to the dates according to the scriptures as you possibly can. You do. All right, it's important because they really are based upon what the Most High commanded in the beginning. We know we can't keep everything to the letter of the law, but what we can do, we should be doing our very best to get as close as we possibly can. Because what that does is it allows Hamashiach to line you up from that point, right? So if you carry a mindset to where, well, it doesn't matter, or, who cares what day we keep it on as long as we keeping it, right? That is kind of it's like I understand that approach because we know we can't keep it to the letter of the law, but if you're not making an effort to get as close as you can with what you know and based on where you are, then you can become stagnant, right? You can become, it can lead to disobedience, but, in all honesty. So I don't want us to think that we're coming up with the dates and anytime there's a correction that needs to be made, it's just like, oh, whatever with it, right? We already picked the date. It is what it is, and we're just going to rock with it. That's not how I operate. I know that's not how Moreh Rick operates. Like, that's not just what I do. So when I text me that, he sent me that earlier today, I said, I got to take a look at it just to make sure that we're all on one accord with each other. All right. I want to make sure we're good. Okay. So in saying that, all right, and we're going to do this before we pray in and all of that. I just want to walk y'all through the process. All right. So when it comes to getting Passover, all right, we're just talking about the 7 feasts. All right, we're not getting into Purim and dedication right now. Although the same system can be followed, right? But when it comes to getting Passover, if y'all can see the screen, this is what it's based off of. All right, we base it off the spring equinox, right? So, what is the spring equinox? The spring equinox is when it's that time of the year in spring, during the springtime, where there are equal parts day, right, and equal parts night. There's 12 hours a day, 12 hours of night, right? And so when you see the spring equinox, or when the spring equinox approaches, then you know you are entering into a new month, a new year, right? Which is what we base it off of. All right. Now, there are 4 times a year where you see this occurrence happening, or let me make sure I get this straight. You're going to have 2 equinox. There's 2 equinox that happens every year, and there's 2 what we call solstice, right? So you're going to have the spring equinox, you're going to have the summer solstice, you're going to have the fall equinox, and then you're going to have the winter solstice. All of these mark a period in time where the seasons change, right? And so this is what we base it off of when it comes to figuring out when the month of Abib is, all right? So every year, when I'm trying to determine when Pesach is going to be, the first thing that I do is I look for when is the spring equinox, all right? Now, based on this, can y'all see the screen? Can y'all tell me when is the spring equinox? Can somebody see that? And just tell me, just so I know y'all see it.
We can see it. It says it's March 20th.
March 20th. All right. March 20th was the spring equinox. That was the day that we saw equal parts day, equal part night, right? So there wasn't a longer day than there was night, nor was there a shorter day and a longer night, which is what we see normally. Just like now that we've entered into daylight savings, what do we see? We see longer days and we see shorter nights. But that was all that all happened after the spring equinox, right? Okay. So from the spring equinox, once I see that, the next thing that occurs is I look for the new moon. Whatever the new moon is after the spring equinox, that's going to mark the first day of Abib, pretty much. All right. So I'm gonna show y'all all of this, just so y'all know how I messed this up, and I apologize ahead of time if anybody had arrangements, because this has happened far too often, and we're gonna put together some fixes for it, all right, to make sure that this doesn't continue to happen. All right, I promise you. That I promise you. We will make sure that this doesn't happen every year to where I have to change dates or wonder about the dates, right? All right. Now, once you determine when the spring equinox is going to be, then you're going to look for the next new moon. Now, what does the next new moon say, right? Let me try to make this a little bit bigger. I know it's small. Hopefully that appears a little bigger. Let me scroll down. All right, so if you see when the new moon is going to be March 21st, right? So that is technically, based on what I know, based on my knowledge, that is the first month, that is the first day of the month of Abib. All right, it's going to be March 21st. I'm going to tell you how I may have overlooked it, but it's going to be March 21st. All right. Now, from the date of the new moon, this is March 21st at evening. So on the day of March 21st at sundown, you are going to see a new moon, right? Which is no moon, pretty much. this is when the night sky is the darkest, right? During the new moon. All right. If you count 14 days from that date, you're gonna get Tuesday the 4th. You're gonna get Tuesday the 4th. All right. Now that Tuesday the 4th is Passover. Tuesday the 4th at evening is Passover. That's Pesach. All right. That's Pesach. Now, what I sent everybody was April 6th. And the reason why I did that is because I know, based on Hebraic customs, and this is not scripture, and this is where I believe I messed up. All right, and I apologize, I really do. Based on Hebraic customs, most of the time the travel day would be during a full moon. Why? Because during a full moon, that's when you have full light. And so if you're going to travel, even at nighttime, you want to travel under full light, right? And so it's going to be a full moon. But it's not based totally in scripture. What we know about scripture is that Passover is going to be on the 14th day during the month of Abib, period, right? That's it. And so the 14th day of the first month is going to be the 4th. It's going to be the 4th that evening, right? Now, he got the 5th. I don't know how he got the 5th, but the date is going to be the 4th. It's going to be the 4th that evening, all right? And
Is it okay if I ask a question?
no, please, go ahead.
Because this is something that I've looked into quite a bit, and I thought that the way we did it was the new moon was the new moon, but you waited till you saw the first sliver of light, and when they saw the first sliver of light, that's when they would celebrate the new moon festivals. And so I thought that the first sliver of light was considered the actual new moon, because I know the new moon is dark, but I thought it was that we waited till we saw the first sliver of light, which would have been last night, which would make 14 days from that day, I thought. So I thought I got the 5th too. So I was like, oh, we're just one day off. It's not a big deal.
Right. No, and it's not. None of this is a big deal, right? I'm not trying to make it out to be a big deal. In my mind, the reason why I feel bad about it, right? And it is true because I know that if you're at your house and you're making arrangements and things like that, like you and Coty, man, you sent out Happy New Year. That's a beautiful thing. I always want to make sure that, to the best of our knowledge, you're accurate, right? You're on par. And so I just don't want you to be off on that. Now, you're absolutely right in what you said. The new moon would be on the 21st, right, at evening. Now, the festival or the feast would be the next day at evening, right? And so this is what I want us to understand. When you talk about the 22nd, all right, let me pull up a calendar just so I don't want to get ahead of. But you're absolutely right in what you're saying. Absolutely right. All right, now check this out. See if I can pull up a calendar. I don't want to keep this too long, but I just want to let y'all know why these dates are going to be changing. I didn't want to do like per usual and just send it out on GroupMe, and then it's like, well, everybody's just kind of lost as far as why it changed. All right, I want to make sure y'all understand and just apologize on my end for giving y'all misinformation. So all right, let's take a look. Hold on. Let me pull up my calendar. So when you look at the 21st, right? The 21st at evening is when the new moon is going to come in. On the 22nd, that's when we're going to start counting those 14 days, right? So you have this at evening. This is how it's going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in March, right? Let me scroll down to April. All right, and then we're gonna have. Let me count it again. I lost count. I'm tripping. Man, keep count for me. I'm tripping. All right, so we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, Hold on, did I count that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Are we starting on the 22nd or the
Well,
22nd, right?
yeah, because it's a day from a day. So you're saying the 21st at evening. So the first full day is going to be the 22nd. So from evening to evening.
So it's 10 days with what's left in March. So that's 10. So we need to start with 11 from the 1st of April.
Okay. All right. So let me count. All right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Right. So on Tuesday at evening is going to be Passover. That's where you get your 14 days, because the new moon, the start of the first month, is going to be the 21st. On the 22nd, when you start to see that sliver of light, that's when we would, bring in, we would do the feast of the new moon, right? That new moon feast, right? And then that's when the start of the 14 days would come, right? We would start it, because this is a whole day from the 21st to the 22nd. That's one day, and then we just keep counting until we get to the 4th at evening, and that's when we will bring in Passover. All right. So the Passover is going to be at evening, and then as we come into the 5th, then we're starting unleavened bread. All right. Does everybody get that? That makes sense? Any questions?
So the new moon is the 21st, and the sliver of light is the 22nd. So at eve on that day, we start the count. That would be one day. From 22nd to 23rd is one day. And so we start the count from there, right?
From the 21st at evening to the 22nd is one day.
Okay.
Okay. So the 21st is beginning the day. It's beginning the first. But at the end of the 22nd, we're ending that day, right? And so that's where we start to count. That makes sense?
I think that's what I said. So we start the count on the evening of the 22nd, not on the evening of the 21st.
Yeah, we're saying the same thing. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, you're right. We're saying the same thing. You wouldn't start from here. I wouldn't say 1, 2. I would say 1 and then 2. You're right. All right. So you would start it from the 22nd, and then you would count 14 days. That's going to end you off on the 4th. You're going to see some people who have the 5th, but that's based on doctrine. It's not based on the lunar cycle. All right. So where I messed up is because I was thinking, or I've always thought that that Passover is going to start on a full moon, right? And that a full moon is going to be 14 days away from a new moon. That is not, it's not doctrine. It's not even science, right? It's not true. And I made this mistake before this year. I don't know what was going on in my mind, right? Because it really is that simple. You look for the spring equinox. When's the first new moon? Whenever the first new moon is, you count 14 days. You're going to get Passover every time and be right on the money, right? And most people, I would say 90% of the people doing it the same way, whether they wicked or righteous, they're going to come up with the same date. And so that is the date. It should be the 4th at evening. It should be Tuesday at evening. All right. That's when the Passover should be. Unleavened bread is going to start on the 5th. It's going to start on the 5th. Right? And so, and then for the count of the Omer, that's my second part. Does anybody have any other questions about Passover? Is everybody good on that? Because I'm going to send it out, and we're recording it, so we'll put this out separate, just so everybody understands, why this change is being made. We'll put this out. But Passover, and Moreh Rick is on, so he can fact check me if we need to. I'm definitely going to go to him before we send out anything, just to make sure we solid, right? But when we look at Passover, does anybody have any questions on how I came up with that date? I'm showing it to you. live and direct. That way there's no confusion. All right. So
All right. So if we were going to take off for the first day of unleavened, we really should have took off, or should have been taken off on the 5th and not the 7th.
right.
Okay.
Right. Which,
All right.
which you know, and that's why I feel bad. That's why I feel bad. I know you weren't trying to make me feel bad, Ma. I know that. But that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why I feel bad, because I know certain people make arrangements, certain people try to bring in the new year, right? Things like that. Like, it makes me feel bad whenever I get this wrong for y'all. And but it's not about me. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want y'all to think I'm throwing a pity party for myself, or feeling sorry for myself. Like, the moment I saw it, I I sunk down on my seat for like 2 seconds, right?
Let me say this. Let me say this. This is what I was saying before when we was doing it before. It's like when we do it so early, it's almost impossible to get it right on the date, anyways, because you have to wait. So it ain't, you know what I mean? It ain't nothing to be, you know what I mean? Because you can't, like I said, you don't. Nobody knows when that sliver gonna happen, anyways.
Yeah,
So you have to wait. You know what I mean? But what happens is we're gonna like say you do it like 2 months out, you're gonna beat off 1 or 2 days. You understand what I'm saying? Because we don't know when that sliver gonna hit. So it's like either you're gonna when you're
yeah,
planning stuff, you know what I'm saying? It's a different when you're planning, trying to book stuff. That's, you know what I'm saying, or getting it right to the head. We're gonna wait to get right to the head. You gotta wait till that sliver hit. That's the only
yeah.
way to get it like close. If not, you're gonna be 1 or 2, 3 days out. That's a
Right.
fight. You know what I mean? 'Cause you gotta wait till that sliver hit.
So my
And
question
nobody
then,
knows when that nobody and technically no is when that barley even comes up anyways.
Yeah,
So nobody in Jerusalem right now. I mean, none of us. So but that's
yeah,
it what it is. But we good.
yeah, I'm not bothered about the date because I can always take the date off. I can go in tomorrow and switch my date from Friday. It was nice to be able to have an additional day for my weekend, but that's okay. So I'll just put in an extra day in the week. But no, so we're not. So when you say Rick say sliver, when we need to wait for the sliver, we can't plan in advance. Are we saying so? We're not actually going by what the calendar is saying to set these dates in advance. We're actually waiting until the year starts to count the moons,
Well,
or
if
am
you want
I?
to get technical like that, that's what I'm saying. If you want to be 100% technical like that, if people want to do that, they can, or you can just go by the calendar. But we want to get it close as we can. You understand what I'm saying? You want to get
it
it
changed.
close as you can to try to be more accurate. But
It
when
changed.
you trying to like say, I see I don't like to make excuses, but it's you can go by the calendar, right? But if you want to get as accurate as you can, you got to wait till that sliver hit. But
Yeah,
then you're gonna have a situation where, okay, when do you book this? When do you book that?
right, right. What we're
What
doing
date?
right now
You understand what I'm
is based
saying?
off of, yeah. What we're doing right now is based off of what we have. You can go based off of that. That's what we're going based off of. That's what I'm showing you. This is what I do every year, right? So as soon as Tabernacle ends, Um, and as soon as I get a couple reminders, you know, Chantella's in my ear. You got to do the feast days. Ema in my ear when the feast days coming out, right? As soon as that happens, then I'm in here and I'm trying to figure out when the feast days are gonna come. Now, based off of what we're looking at, when you look at any type of moon cycle, you can use this app. Take time and date. That website timeanddate.com, very good. I use them all the time, right? For the lunar cycle and everything. Um, but you can go to another site and it's gonna give you a different cycle. Like it's not apps. It's not concrete. It's not concrete, right? And so what we would have in the land during this time is you would have people who would study the sky, like they would examine it every single day. They would keep a record of every cycle, and they would know like when, because now we got, like, if you think about it, man, we got months that got 28 days, months that got 31 days, months that got 30 days. We didn't use any of that before. It wasn't on a day cycle like, oh man, we in the month of March, it's gonna be 31 days, right? Or 30 days or whatever. Like when we looked at these calendars, or when we looked at the moon cycle, it wasn't based on a number. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna have this many days in this month, blah blah blah. They just went based off of the cycle, and that's how they determined when a new month was approaching, when we were in a new moon, and then what would they do? Right? We just went over this with the kids. You read it in Numbers, right? They blew the trumpet to let you know we're in the month, we're in a new month, right? And that was how they kept track of those feast days, and the new moons and things like that. So, and there was no, now we do it for the purposes of making sure we have a venue to book, making sure we have a place where we can meet up and convocate. Because back then they didn't have to worry about that. Like I could have told y'all today, hey, today is the new moon, right? If it was, let's say it was, today's the new moon, Passover's on blah blah blah. You already know what we meeting up, right? There is no logistics as far as, hey, who meeting up, what we need to bring, blah, blah, blah. Like, nah, Jerusalem was coming together, right? Or everybody was coming to Jerusalem when it came to Passover, when it came to Pentecost, when it came to Tabernacle. So these are things that we have to navigate now, and this is why it is going to be off sometimes by a day or two, but this one was kind of flagrant, in my opinion, on me. Right, to where I just had it off. It was just off. I went based off of the full moon, and I don't know. I couldn't tell you my headspace at that time. They was working me like a dog. I don't know, man. I don't know if I was tired, if it was the umpteenth hour. I have no idea what was going on, but it should have been the fourth from the get go. Now, in saying that, when it comes to Passover, the Passover is gonna be the fourth at evening, right? I know you got the fifth, and you just came on late. Hey, we'll build later, brother. If you still feel like it's the fifth, we'll dialogue. All right. But from the fourth at evening, that should be Passover. All right. Now we're gonna come on go to. It'll be me. I'll have something for y'all. We're gonna bring in the Passover. It's gonna be online. Before we convocate on the 9th, and then we'll bring out a word, man, and we'll feast and do all that good stuff, right? So for sure, we're gonna get on go to for sure on the 4th. All right, that's a guarantee. And unless y'all got different plans, that's my plan right now for us to bring it on the 4th. All right. Now with that, the count of the Omer. The count of the Omer. Y'all can still see that calendar. It's going to start on the 8th, right? Because y'all know how we count until Shavuot or Pentecost. It is what? 7 Sabbaths, right? 7 weeks of 7 Sabbaths. So if you count from the 8th, 7 weeks of 7 Sabbaths, that Pentecost is going to be on May 28th. It's going to be on May 28th. It's going to be May 28th, sundown. I'm sorry. It's going to be Saturday, the 27th, sundown to May 28th, sundown. All right. Now, I believe I text out June 3rd. And again, the reason why I did that is because typically what I would do is I would wait till after Passover, unleavened bread, and then we would count the Omer on that first Shabbat after Passover and unleavened bread. But we switched that up, and so now after Passover and after the start of unleavened, that first Shabbat is when we're going to start to count the Omer. All right. Now to Moreh's point, when he brought this out, we don't know when to start to count, because how we would start to count is based off of barley, right? When that first clove of barley springs forth, that's when we would start to count, because that's when you would be commanded to bring forth the offering, which we don't have, right? We don't have it, and so this is why we do it. You're either going to do it that first Shabbat or you're going to do it the second Shabbat, and so you always get assemblies who are a week apart. Right, based off of that, and so Passover, just to recap before we get started into the lesson. Passover is going to be from April 4th at sundown. That's when Passover is going to be. And then unleavened bread is going to run from the 5th. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm gonna make sure I get it straight before I send it out to y'all. But I think it's gonna run from what, the 5th to
Is it
the
just 7 days? So it's till the 12th at
11
evening?
bread, 7 days. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. But
So if it starts on the 5th, then we count the evening of the 5th to the evening of the 6th is 1 day. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's 7 days. It ends on the 12th.
So yeah, so the 4th to the 5th, Pesach, the 5th at evening, or it's not even the 5th at evening. You got the 4th at evening is Passover. As soon as daylight hits, we're in unleavened. Right, 11 is going to run from the 5th to the 12th at evening, and then that first Shabbat after Pesach, and after the start of unleavened bread on the 8th is when we start the count of the Omer, which puts Shavuot at May 28th. All right, it's going to be May 28th.
I'm confused.
Or would that be May 27th, sundown to the 28th?
May 27th sundown to May 28th sundown. I just
Correct.
know when we keep the convocation, it's going to be on a Sunday. Right?
Correct. Got you. You're right.
So it's the first Shabbat after unleavened bread starts. Then we start counting the 14 Shabbats. Is that correct?
Yep, 7 weeks of 7 Sabbaths.
Okay, so it starts the 8th, not the 15th, which is after unleavened bread.
Correct.
So it starts before the unleavened bread ends. Okay.
Correct. I used to do it after, only because we don't know. We really don't know when the count starts. Like, we don't know. Like, the count of the Omer would start when we brought the offering of the Omer. That's why you can't predict it. Some people do it after Passover and 11 has fully ended, then they'll start it, and then some people do it in the midst, right? It doesn't matter to me either way, but I think it's more I think it makes more sense to do it in the midst of it all, as far as being unified and being on one accord. So we'll do it in the midst. All right. So after the start of after Passover, after the start of unleavened, on that first Shabbat, we're gonna count 7 weeks and 7 Sabbaths. If y'all count it out, it's gonna bring you to Pentecost, which is gonna be on the 27th at sundown to the 28th at sundown. All right. Now, as far as I know, every other feast day we got on point. We're good, but we are gonna double check it before we even get down there. Down to the fall feast days to make sure that we're all on point. All right. I just wanted to make sure that I gave y'all the accurate information and to show my error and how I did that. And so from this point forward, what we're gonna do, and we'll talk about this. I'll talk about this with Moreh and Rick. We'll figure out a system to come together for any of you who know how to count, for any of you who want to know how to kind of count the feast days and base it off of descriptions and things like that. We might just hold a separate class for it. I'll show y'all, and then we can all get together as a committee, pretty much, just to make sure that we're checking each other's dates, right? This responsibility, I feel like, was put on me. It was given to me by the Most High. I really do. I feel like to determine the feast days and things like that, like he gave me that responsibility. But I don't feel like anymore it's mine alone. And I prayed about it and thought about it, and I know we got dedicated brothers and sisters, and I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. I strive to be. But when it comes to these feast days, man, I make all the mistakes in the world when it comes to looking at the days and counting and things like that. It's easy to miss one day or to skip a day, and then that throws off the whole thing. So we'll make sure that we have a committee to come together, and that'll be our sole job, right? I'll be the overseer of it, and then we'll have brothers and sisters who also are counting the days as well. That way we can make sure we're all holding each other accountable and putting out the dates and making sure that we're good to go. Coach Monica, you had something?
I was just gonna make a suggestion or bring something to the table. I think that when I read the scriptures, one of the things that we were told to keep were the new moon feasts and festivals. And of course, we're not around each other to be able to keep those. But I think that if we start to add that to what it is we're doing, at least, doing something where we get online and just blow a shofar or something for the new moon, it'll help us to be able to calculate that sliver, because I use an app that tells me when the new moon is at 5%, and I know when it's at 5%, it's visible. If it's at 1%, it's not visible, and so that's how I calculate the new moons. And it's been pretty true and accurate. Like when it's 1%, I can't see it in the sky, but when the app says it's at 5%, I can see it, and I can judge it out for about a year. And it hasn't been wrong yet since I've been using it. But I think that if we start to do that month to month, the way that the scriptures tell us to, then we'll be preparing ourselves, and we'll get into a habit of knowing when they fall. Being able to calculate it and not running into these types of confusions.
No,
So is your suggestion that we blow we gather on every new moon every month? Is that what you're saying?
It is an ordinance to us that we keep the new moons and the Sabbaths, and the new moon is considered a Sabbath when you're reading the scriptures, and it's something that I know that we haven't really been doing, but maybe this is Abba telling us that it's time for us to start trying to observe it in some way.
Yeah, no, and to Coach Monica's point, even if we're not in a position to gather, we can still acknowledge. Like this is the whole thing when we talk about feast days and scriptures and things like that, right? I don't want this point to be lost that everything that we keep, we memorialize, because that's what we're doing. Everything is a memorial. We can't keep it according to the letter of the law, and so we're recognizing it and remembering it according to the scripture and everything that was commanded concerning the new moon, concerning the feast days and things like that. These are they're put in place for us to function properly, right? And so I agree, even if we can't gather now, and maybe that might be something that we will do down the line. Once we got our own spot, we got our own place, we might gather and celebrate the new moon, right? And bring it in and keep that as a Shabbat. But as for now, to acknowledge it, I don't think it is off at all, right? Because it does, the purpose of it and the function of it is to help us keep track. And so I'm all for that. And, like I said, before we do anything, me and Moreh, we're going to get together, and we're gonna build on these things. We're gonna talk about them. We're gonna get together with the other members of the leadership and talk about it, and then figure out where we're gonna go from here. Because the Most High is really gonna put His house in order, and I know, that really does start from the top down. And so we got to make sure we get ourselves straight. That's why I wanted to come to y'all and just let y'all know, hey, look, my bad. It really was. I don't. It really was my mess up. You know what I'm saying? It was my mess up. And I wanted to come on as quick as possible and make sure we get it corrected. And then also get with Moreh and make sure we put things in place to make sure that it doesn't continue to happen. and we'll do it. So, but for now, I just wanted to let y'all know for those two feasts. You're absolutely right, Kosi. For those two feasts, um, for Passover, it's gonna start on the 4th at evening, right? And then for Pentecost, that's gonna be the 27th at evening to the 28th at evening. All right. So I want us to get that. Our convocation does not change. It's still going to be on the 9th. That's when we can get a venue, and so that's what we're memorializing, and that's what we're keeping. And again, that's what I was bringing up before. I want us to never lose sight of what this means to memorialize these feasts. It's to be put in remembrance, right? We should be doing everything that we can to keep it with all of our heart, mind, and soul according to what the Most High has commanded. But we should never lose sight of why we're able to keep it. It's to keep us in remembrance of Hamashiach, right? It's to keep us in remembrance of Hamashiach. If we were to be in a position of where we couldn't keep the Passover truly on the date of Passover, because of affliction or punishment or running through the wilderness or whatever, whenever we find a resting place, we will still keep it. Why? To memorialize the feast. And this is what Hamashiach shows his honor to. So I just want us to really stay true to that mindset. Man, if we don't do it on this date, man, we in sin and this, that, and the third. He's really just looking at the heart, which is why I wanted to make sure that if we could make the correction, let's make the correction. All right. And then we'll go from there. Okay. So does anybody have anything else to bring out? Any other questions? If you don't want to ask it now, text me later, call me later. We can build. Man, shout out to Ak. He brought this to my attention, and I appreciate you, Ak. I had to go back and look, and I'll please, for any of y'all, if I ever send out the feast days and you look at them and you say this doesn't jive with my spirit, right? It doesn't really line up with what I see, man. Just let me know. We'll build together, right? Because I honestly, when it comes to this walk, I don't care about who's right. I don't. I will be wrong 1,000 times if it means the Most High being right. I will. I will take that hit. I feel like I'm already at 1,000, right? 1,001, whatever. I would do that 1,000 times if it means the Most High's word being kept and it being right. That's all I care about. I don't care about being corrected. I'm not above correction at any point in time. So please don't feel like you can come to me and say, hey, this look a little weird. Can you look at it? I think this is off based on the research I did, or even if it comes down to a scripture. Hey, I think the scripture, when you interpreted it might have been wrong based off of this, and this. Man, we can build. It is your reasonable service to look out for me, right? Just like it is for me to look out for you, right? The positions that we've been put in, it does not separate us from looking out for one another as brothers and sisters, right? When you establish a hierarchy, it's position in who does what and who is responsible for what. But when it comes to salvation, we all are held accountable for looking out for our brothers and sisters' salvation all day long, right? Okay. So I will send that out on GroupMe once we're done here. We're definitely not gonna get too far into the lesson, but we're gonna start it up. Let me stop the recording. When you see this recording, you can post it separately. Just post it feast day discussion, something like that. And we'll leave it like that. And then this will be a separate lesson altogether.